Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices. And when you download the Kroger app, you can enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. Plus, you can earn fuel points to save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. So it's easy to save big. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Fuel restrictions apply.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Tired of ads crashing your comedy podcast party? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
At Discount Tire, we know your time is valuable. Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online. Did you know Discount Tire now sells wiper blades? Check out our current deals at DiscountTire.com or stop in and talk to an associate today. Discount Tire.
Let's get you taken care of.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day or ITV Hub or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package, which is instantly downloadable to your device, and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Tuesday. It is the 23rd of January. Hope you're all well. Hope those of you in Ireland are staying safe in these stormy days. We had no electricity here for about 27 or so hours. No, 37 or so hours. From about 20 past 7 on Sunday until this morning. So not ideal, and we're bracing for another storm tonight. So my internet's a little bit hazy, so if there's any kind of glitches or freezes or I go a bit robotic in this, I do apologise, but there's actually nothing I can really do about it for the moment. Right, we can look at the weekend's Premier League games, of which we had 5. First up, Arsenal beating Crystal Palace 5-0 at the Emirates. a good win for the Gunners, but I mean, a win that was expected by everybody. The scoreline flattered Arsenal, but at the same time, it was good to see them start to score some goals. 2 from set pieces, one of which was ruled an own goal. Gabriel's header, which somehow he managed to miss the target from a yard out with nobody in front of him, and he headed it back across the face of goal, and it hit Dean Henderson and went in. Gabriel had opened the scoring, obviously. Palace had some complaints about the fact that he did seem to climb over Chris Richards. Whether or not there was anything in it, I don't know, but they're similar complaints to what Arsenal made about Joelinton climbing on Gabriel up at Newcastle. So at the time, I thought that goal should have been disallowed. So I guess I have to say I think this goal should have been disallowed. No question marks over the second one, though. Like I say, it goes in off Henderson. It's an own goal. And then they did the Arsenal thing, where they struggled to break down Crystal Palace when they were in a set half-pitch defence, but opened up on counter-attacks, which they haven't been able to do this season. Leandro Trossard made it 3-0 after good work by Gabriel Jesus. And then in stoppage time, Gabriel Martinelli scored twice, basically the same goal both times, with Palace looking very, very ragged. It's a good win for Arsenal. It keeps them in the mix, but I don't think it'll have sent out any real warning sounds to anybody. I don't think anyone's going to look at that and think, oh, we need to be worried about Arsenal, personally. Brentford 3, Nottingham Forest 2. Some controversy in this one as well. Ivan Toney opens the scoring from a free kick on 19 minutes. No, sorry, he doesn't. Danilo opens the scoring on 3 minutes. Ivan Toney equalises on 19 minutes. A free kick in which he moved the ball about a yard to the side, maybe not even a yard. He was asked about it in his post-match, and he said, oh, well, you're allowed to move the ball a yard either side. No, Ivan, you're not. You are allowed to move the ball a little bit, but not to that extreme. But I don't think it's anything to really get too upset about. The goalkeeper should have just readjusted his wall. I would put a lot more blame for that on the goalkeeper and the wall than on Ivan Toney. Ben Mee made it 2-1 on 58 minutes. Chris Wood equalised on 65, but Neil Maupay on 68 with an outstanding finish. Lovely first touch. Then it hit him on the side, and it kind of cushioned it perfectly as he swiveled and volleyed with his left foot into the corner. Forrest complained that it was a handball. It wasn't. It very clearly hit him on the side. It's a great goal by Maupay. Sheffield United 2, West Ham United 2. More controversy in this one. So Max Cornet puts West Ham 1 up on 28 minutes. His first goal for West Ham, would you believe? Then Ben Brereton Diaz equalised on 44. West Ham's defending really, really poor. Little bit chaotic in the box. James Ward-Prowse put West Ham 2-1 up on 79 minutes from the penalty spot. No arguments over this penalty. Danny Ings does brilliantly, lovely turn, beats 2 players and gets pulled down. It's penalty. Then the controversy starts. So Ryan Brewster is sent off on 93 minutes. There's 8 minutes of stoppage. Was it 8 minutes or 6 minutes? There was either 6 or 8 minutes of stoppage time to be played. 93 minutes, Ryan Brewster flings himself into a dangerous challenge. 2-footed, out of control. Referee gives a yellow card. VAR start to review it. So now the clock starts to change. There's no longer going to be 6 minutes because the VAR have gotten involved. VAR come back, advise the referee, go and look at this on the screen. That's more minutes been added on. Referee sees it, changes his mind. Red card. No question, straight red card. Then a couple of minutes later, Vladimir Sufal, who's already been booked, picks up a second yellow card. Now, it's definitely a yellow card. It's just a really foolish type of challenge. It's almost like he'd forgotten he was on a yellow card. So that delays the game a little bit more. And in the 102nd minute, the ball is launched in to the West Ham box. McBurney goes up for it. Areola comes to try and clear it. Clatters into McBurney. Very, very similar to what happened at Old Trafford on the opening weekend of the season when Onana came out and clattered into Sasa Kalajdzic. But this time the referee gives the penalty. And McBurney himself steps up. Areola has to go off because he's taken a big blow to the head. On comes Fabianski. It's not a great penalty. But he scores, and Sheffield United get a draw, which, to be clear, they absolutely deserved the draw in that game. They absolutely deserved the draw. The later game on Sunday was Bournemouth 0, Liverpool 4. Bit of a sluggish first half from Liverpool. They were still the better team, but Bournemouth had a spell at the very start of the half and the very end of the half where they looked the more dangerous team. But Liverpool came out in the second half and they just opened Bournemouth up time and again. Darwin Núñez scored on 49 minutes, Diogo Jota on 70, Jota again on 79, and then Núñez wrapped it up in the 93rd minute. Liverpool were good value for the victory. 4-0 flattered them a little bit. 3 would probably have been a fairer reflection, maybe even 3-1, but a good win for Liverpool, away against the team who were the second best team in the league over the last 10 games. Like, I know it's only Bournemouth, but if you look at the previous 10 games, the top 2 teams in the league were Liverpool and then Bournemouth. Bournemouth had actually won more games in those 10 than Liverpool. They had the same goal difference. Liverpool had just scored more goals. Or had they... I could be wrong about the goal difference. But the points total was exactly the same. They'd taken the same number of points from the previous 10 games as Liverpool. Both had taken 22 points. 6 wins and 4 draws for Liverpool. 7 wins, 1 draw and 2 defeats for Bournemouth. And then last night we got Brighton 0, Wolves 0. I thought Brighton should have won the game. I thought they had the better chances. But overall, I don't think either side could really be too upset by the draw, frankly. I think it was kind of warranted. So the table, Liverpool are top, 5 points clear of Manchester City. City do have a game in hand. That game in hand is against Brentford. Then it's Arsenal, level in points with City, but 3 goals worse off. Then it's Aston Villa, level in points with City and Arsenal. 9 goals worse off than City, 6 worse off than Arsenal. Then on 40 points in 5th place come Spurs. Then it's a 5-point gap to West Ham in 6th. Then Brighton in 7th, 32 points. Manchester United in 8th, also 32 points. Brighton are 10 goals better off. United are -5. -5 in the goal column. Only scored 24 goals this season. Crystal Palace, Burnley, and Sheffield United are the only teams to score less goals than United this season. Luton and Everton have scored the same number, and Luton have played a game less. Then it's Chelsea in 9th with 31 points. They've won 3 in a row and 4 of the last 5. So potentially starting to turn things around there. Then we get Newcastle in 10th, 29 points. Same points total as 11th place Wolves, but 10 goals better off. +9 versus -1. Then we get Bournemouth in 12th, 25 points. Game in hand. That game is at home to Luton. Not sure how they're going to work that one yet. Will they restart it from the point in which the game was abandoned after the Tom Lockyer collapse? Or will they replay it? I'm not sure that decision has been made yet. Then it's Fulham on 24. Then Brentford on 22. Crystal Palace on 21. Nottingham Forest on 20, but with an asterisk next to it because they might be facing a 10-point deduction. Everton on 17, also with an asterisk, because they might also be facing a 10-point deduction. And obviously for them, that would be their second 10-point deduction of the season. Then it's Luton, 16 points, but with that game in hand. I should have said Brentford obviously have a game in hand on the teams around them. So if they were to win their game in hand, they'd go ahead of Fulham, but that game in hand is City, so that's tough. Luton 16th can get out of the bottom four if they could win that game in hand against Bournemouth. Then it's Burnley on 12 points and Sheffield United on 10 points. A fairly pitiful showing so far from Burnley and Sheffield United in particular. Now Everton will feel aggrieved because they should have 27 points. They should be sitting 12th in the league, which would be a fair reflection on what they've done thus far in the campaign, because they haven't been terrible. They've won 8 games. Brighton have only won 8 games. Wolves have won 8 games. Nobody below Wolves, other than Everton, has won 8 games. You've got Bournemouth and Fulham on 7, Brentford on 6, Palace and Forest on 5, Luton on 4, Burnley on 3, and Sheffield United on 2. And Everton have only lost 10 games, which is the same as Newcastle. It's less than Fulham, less than Forest, and less than the bottom 3. Everton have only conceded 28 goals. That's better than everybody in the bottom half. And from the top half, it's better than Newcastle, better than Chelsea, better than Brighton, better than West Ham, and better than Tottenham. Everton's defence has been legitimately good this year. The Tarkowski-Branthwaite pairing has been very, very impressive. Onana and Garner are starting to form a really good double pivot. Michaelenko's playing the best football of his Everton career. I think Patterson is really starting to grow into the team as well, develop under Sean Dyche, who's obviously done very well in his career at developing young fullbacks. Look at the job he did with Charlie Taylor at Burnley. That Everton back four and the two that sit in front of them, they are for real. They are good. Now, they don't score enough goals. They've only scored 24, which is the same as United and Luton. So you've only got Palace, Burnley and Sheffield United that have scored scored less goals than them. But this is a Sean Dyche team, so the task is be really strong at the back. And we'll nick a goal here and there. You look at their goal difference, -4. Now, Brentford are also -4. Wolves are -1. But everybody else in the bottom half has a considerably worse goal difference. And Manchester United, who sit 8th, have a worse goal difference. Like, United are probably the closest team to Everton in terms of, that kind of stronger defence is tough to say with United because they haven't been strong defensively and their goalkeeper continues to throw in goals. But stylistically, they're similar enough teams. They try and pack their defence, defend in numbers, and then they try and counter-attack. United have spent an awful lot of money to be Everton, though. But I do think Sean Dyche is doing a really good job. To have had a 10-point deduction and not be in the bottom 3 after 21 games is pretty good work. If they get another one, though, I am worried because no wins in their last 4, trending in the wrong direction, and they seem like, 1 or 2 injuries could really hurt them. 10-point deduction at this point would put them on 7 points. Which, that's 20 points taken off them in a season. That's really, really tough to stomach. That would put them bottom, meaning they'd need to climb back over Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton all over again. And they'd be 9 points behind Luton to get started with. Now, what could fall into their favour is that Forest could also get the points deduction. So that would put Forest 19th, above Sheffield United, but below Burnley. So if we were looking at a bottom three, that actually, if both teams get the points deduction, it would be Everton in 20th, Sheffield United 17th, Forest 18th, Sheffield United 19th, Forest 18th, Burnley 17th, and Luton in 16th. Well, then Everton would only have to claw back enough points to catch Burnley, which would be 5 points. That's very doable. And I wonder, given it didn't end the best, would Sean Dyche secretly like that to be the case? That Burnley finish 18th and Everton finish 17th? Because he spent a long time there, and I don't think he was all that well treated on the way out the door. I'm going to go to break, come back, we're going to do winners and losers, and maybe take a bit of a deeper dive on one or two of the teams we haven't really touched on too much this season. So I'll see you after this.
Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcasts? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free news podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
At Discount Tire, we know your time is valuable. Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online. Did you know Discount Tire now sells wiper blades? Check out our current deals at discounttire.com or stop in and talk to an associate today. Discount Tire.
Let's get you taken care of.
Right, welcome back. So, winners and losers. We're going to do, obviously, the last 10 Premier League games, this full round. Didn't do it last week, I don't think, anyway. First winner, Manchester City. Very, very obvious. Not because they won the game, but because Kevin De Bruyne is back. And regardless of his age, the injuries that he's now picking up, he remains one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league. He is an absolute sensation. The goal was world class. The assist was ludicrous. He is just a phenomenal footballer. And having him back for City makes all the difference. At times this year, their attack has looked a little bit one-dimensional, a little bit predictable. They were still scoring goals because they've still got great players. But he adds that, just that extra little bit of unpredictability, of creativeness, of genius that Phil Foden doesn't have at this point. As great as Bernardo is, he doesn't have that level of passing. Jack Grealish isn't on that planet at all, and they just didn't have anyone else that could really unlock defences the way KDB does. So getting him back undeniably makes them a big winner. Second up is Brentford. And for the same reason, not just because they won a game of football, but because Ivan Toney is back. Because Ivan Toney, as an all-round centre-forward, is as good as anybody in the league. And he will just make a huge difference to them. Like, he's not going to score you the goals of a Haaland. But he offers far more in build-up play, in general play, with set pieces, with creativity. I think Ivan Toney being back for Brentford is absolutely massive. And given they've got a bunch of other injuries, particularly in attack, and given there's players gone to AFCON like Johan Wissa, it was absolutely imperative that they either get Toney back or get somebody in. Or the back half of the season was going to get really, really tricky for them. Because you look at it now, they're only 6 points ahead of Luton. Now, 6 points is still a considerable amount, but they'd lost 4 in a row prior. Was it 5 in a row? It might have been 5 in a row prior to this weekend's game. And they were trending in the wrong direction. With injuries everywhere, with players out of form, it wouldn't have taken much. A few more bad weeks, a few results that go against them elsewhere, and it wouldn't have taken much to see them looking over their shoulder, maybe only 2 points behind Luton. And then things can start to get really tricky because nerves will set in. But getting Tony back settles them down, gets them the win. Again, remember, they only started the weekend 4 points, I think, ahead of Luton. So, that they've opened a bit more of a gap. I think they have to be considered a big winner. And then Liverpool. Liverpool going to Bournemouth, the team in that kind of form, and coming away with such a comprehensive win, particularly when City had won in this match week and Arsenal had won in this match week. I think it's huge for them. To go there with the injuries that they've got, Trent, Robertson, Szoboszlai, Salah obviously at AFCON, to go there and get that result, very, very impressive against the Bournemouth team who themselves were missing a number of players but have been in such great form over the last 10 games. Our losers then, first up is Burnley. So the manner of the draw, as much as the draw itself, to concede that late on is a crushing blow. But that was a game they had to win. You have to win your games at home against relegation rivals if you want to stay in this division. And they couldn't get the job done. So they're first. Then I'm going to go Aston Villa. Now Everton, like I said in part one, they're much better than their league position suggests because they had the 10 points taken off them. But Villa are at the top end of the table. Everton would still be bottom half. Villa have to be winning those games. And it's not just that game that causes me some concern with Villa. It's the games that came before it. Scraping past Burnley. Losing to a bad Manchester United team, having been 2-0 up. Scraping a late draw with Sheffield United. This is a poor run of form. A poor run of performances from Aston Villa. And I would include the Brentford game in that. They were poor in that game. So, it's now 5 games in a row in the league that Villa have not performed anywhere close to the level that they're capable of. And we know how good they can be. There's a reason they're top 4. There's a reason that if you look at the last 38 games in the Premier League, they're third. They're a really good team, really well managed. But they've got to get their act together. And it starts with Newcastle this day next week. They've got to win that game at home. They've got to go to Bramall Lane and win. And then they've got to beat Manchester United at home. They need 3 wins from 3 to sustain this. Because then it does get a little bit easier for them. But you know that Liverpool, City and Arsenal are going to keep picking up points. Spurs are only 3 points behind you. You've got to maintain a strong pace if you really want to be a Champions League team next season. And I do think they've got a very good chance of getting into the top 4. I really do. I think it's going to be City and Liverpool in whichever order, first and second. And then I think it's 2 from 3. Arsenal, Villa, and Spurs. Right now, you would say it's Arsenal plus 1. But we've seen Arsenal flounder. We've seen them choke at the end of seasons the last 2 years in a row. So would it be any surprise if they choked again? A team struggling in attack? A team who's had so much luck with injuries thus far? Only Gabriel Jesus of their nominal starting 11 missing 4 or more games? They've been very fortunate. They can cry about Timber, cry about Partey. Partey's not a starter. They bought Rice to replace him. Timber might be. I'm not sure where. But, Ben White was the best right back in the league last year. Zinchenko was the best left back in the league last year, according to Arsenal fans. Those two cost about 85 million combined. So where is Jurrien Timber coming in? Either way, he's coming into a position in which Arsenal have a player that their fans were making out was the best in the league in their position last year. So, can't have too much sympathy for them. And the same thing goes with Partey. They signed Rice to replace him. They've been telling us all season long that Declan Rice is the best defensive midfielder in the world, despite being anything but. Another poor performance from Rice that'll be hidden by a 5-0 scoreline at the weekend. His passing is just so limited. So limited. He's an outstanding athlete. And he's really good box to box. Really good box to box. But if you want him to be a hub for your team as a 6, you're going to fall short. And they have thus far. So they could well flounder. And if they do, Villa need to make sure that they capitalise on that. Because I think Spurs are going to be strong over the back half of the season. Maddison is pretty much back. They've added Dragusin. Van de Ven is back. Romero's back. After AFCON, they will get Basuma. They will get Sarr. After the Asian Cup, they will get Son. They've got Timo Werner in. I think we'll see more in the second half from Richarlison. I think we'll see more in the second half from Brennan Johnson. Like, they're a dangerous team. They're well balanced back front. Spurs' issue is a lack of depth. Villa's issue might be their away form. Just that inability to go and win away from home. So they're my second loser on the week, the match week. And then my final one, I think it has to be West Ham. You know, you sit 6th in the league. You had an opportunity to close in on Spurs after their draw at United and kind of get it down to a 3-point gap. You're ahead twice away from home against the worst team in the league who struggled to score goals. They'd scored 15 and 20 before that game, and yet they managed to score 2 against you. And the manner of it as well, that last second, that has to really sting. That has to really sting, Moyes. But I want to stick with West Ham because they are having a very good season. And it has gone under the radar quite a bit. Obviously, last season was really poor domestically, but ended with them winning a European trophy. Now, it is the Conference League. It's not the glitz and the glamour of the Champions League. It's not the steady Europa League. It's the Europa Conference League. They're only the second ever winner of the competition. And nobody really takes it all that seriously. And if Villa win it this year, it'll be the same. People will just kind of look down on it and dismiss it. But the fans were right to celebrate it the way they did. Because in 30 years' time, we'll look back on it and go, well, they won the Europa Conference League. That's really impressive. Because by then, the Conference League will have gravitas. It will have history. It will have more prestige. Because that's what happens. As these tournaments go year by year by year, they build up prestige. So they win that competition, but they go out of the EFL Cup in the 3rd round, the FA Cup in the 5th round, and they end up 14th in the Premier League, having, for parts of the season, flirted with the bottom 3. You look back, 23 games into the season, they were 18th. They'd been in the bottom 3 for 5 of the first 7 weeks of the season. They'd climbed as high as 10th, dropped back down to 18th, managed to work their way into 16th, then dropped back down to 18th, and then, largely through the ineptitude of others, they ended up in 14th. Because remember, they only won 2 of their last 7 Premier League games with 5 defeats. So it was the ineptitude of others that put them into 14th. Otherwise, 16th or 17th was probably a better reflection on what West Ham had as a season last year. So we go into this summer and they sell Declan Rice. And they fleece Arsenal. They get £105 million for a £55 million player. So now it's a matter of reinvesting it. Can they reinvest that money well? They go out and they get Mohamed Kudus, Konstantinos Mavropanos, James Ward-Prowse, and Edson Alvarez. Now, my thoughts on Ward-Prowse remain the same. He's a great set-piece taker. He's a very good crosser of the ball. In general play, he's a nothing player. And we see that week after week. In general play, James Ward-Prowse doesn't offer a whole lot. But Edson Alvarez has been really good for them. Mavropanos, I think, has been pretty good for them. And Kudus, after a slower start, has been outstanding in the last 2.5 months. Obviously gone to AFCON for the moment. In the summer, they also sold Scamacca, they sold Nikola Vlasic, two decent money signings that just didn't work out at all. I think the sale of Scamacca was a mistake. I think they would have been well served to stick with him and give him more time, especially now with what they have at this point, because him as a 9 with Bowen, Paqueta and Kudus behind them, I think would have been outstanding. Him as a 6'5" centre forward with the delivery of a James Ward-Prowse knocking around would have been exceptional. He hasn't torn up any trees at Atalanta, only the 6 goals in 14 games, but he has played quite well. Vlasic has had 2 shots in the Premier League and it just hasn't worked either time for him. So we know that no Premier League club should go close to him again. But they brought in more money than they spent. So we have a case of addition by subtraction, because they sell Rice, they sell Vlasic, they sell Scamacca. I think they got roughly 140 million for the 3 of them. Alvarez, I think, was 35. Ward-Prowse was he 20? Mavropanos was around that 20 mark, and Kudus was around the 40 mark. So they made a profit on the summer. And you would think, and I remember, they also came quite close to selling Paqueta, but you would think, okay, they sold Rice, who the media tell us is their best player. They're probably going to take a step back. But, like I say, it's addition by subtraction. You bring in Alvarez, who's a better defensive midfielder than Rice, who's obviously a much better player, but a box-to-box player. And by doing that, you're able to play Souček in that box-to-box role, where he's not dynamic at all, but he can get you goals. And when he gets himself into the box on the end of things, he does well. Like, he does well in the penalty area. He's big and he's awkward, but he strikes the ball well. He's good in the air. Ward-Prowse's set pieces obviously have been a big help. But Kudus is the star turn. Kudus is an outrageously talented player. And what is he, 22, 23? 23, turned in August. He's got 10 goals in 24 games so far. 6 and 16 in the Premier League. He can play right side, left side, 10, 9. Can play in a midfield 3 if you need him to. He's the type of player every club is looking for. And West Ham managed to nab him. And you look at how the season's gone for them. They started off with a draw away to Bournemouth. Then they beat Chelsea. Then they went and hammered Brighton. 3-1 did not reflect their dominance in that game. They went and beat Luton, which, as we now know, more impressive result than it seemed at the time, because Luton have been very tough to beat at their own place. They lose to City, they lose to Liverpool. No shame there at all. That's the 2 best teams in the country. They beat Sheffield United. They draw with Newcastle. In hindsight, they'd probably like that one back. They'd probably like to go at Newcastle again. They lose away to Villa. Again, no shame. Villa are brilliant at home. The defeat at home to Everton is a bad result. A really bad result for them. The defeat away to Brentford, I think, given what Brentford have gone through this year, given the injury issues, the suspension issues, I think they'll be disappointed. Then they beat Forest, they beat Burnley. Neither of them are impressive wins. Neither of them are comprehensive wins. They get the job done. The draw at home to Palace is a bad result. And one that, again, I think they'd like back. Then they go to Tottenham and they win, which is a really good result. Then they got walloped by Fulham. Absolutely walloped by Fulham. That's a bad result. Then they bounce back. They beat Wolves. Then they beat Manchester United. Then they go to the Emirates. And they beat Arsenal, which is an outstanding result for West Ham United. Then they get a home draw against Brighton, which I don't think is too bad a result. But I would say the draw away to Sheffield United is a bad result. So Sheffield United away, the 5-0 thrashing by Fulham, and the Everton loss. For me, they're their 3 bad results. And then I think they'd like to have a redo on the Newcastle draw and the Palace draw, but I don't think they're bad results. I don't think they're outright bad results. Maybe the Palace one because of where Palace are in the league. Newcastle, 10th, they're better than 10th. But what we're seeing with West Ham this year that we didn't see last year is a grit and a determination. You look at last season and look at some of the results. You begin the season, you lose 2-0 at home to City, that's fine. You go to Forest, you lose 1-0. It's their first home game after being promoted, you can excuse it. You lose 2-0 at home to Brighton. Okay, fair enough. You go to Villa and win, great result. Now, Villa weren't then what they are now, but still, great result. Draw at home with Tottenham. Defeat away to Chelsea. No issue. Defeat away to Everton, bad result. Everton were dreadful at this time last year. You beat Wolves at home, you beat Fulham at home. Draw away to Southampton, not a great result. Lose to Liverpool, fair enough. Beat Bournemouth, good result. Then you go to Manchester United and you lose, okay. Then you lose at home to Crystal Palace and to Leicester. Come back from the World Cup, lose at the Emirates. You lose at home to Brentford. So in your last 3 home games, you've now lost to Crystal Palace, lost to Leicester, and lost to Brentford. They're bad results. 2-2 draw with Leeds, not a good result. 1-0 defeat at Wolves, fair enough. You beat Everton 2-1, 2-0 at home. You go to Newcastle and get a great point. You get a draw against Chelsea. You lose to West Ham. You beat Forest. You get hammered by Brighton. Draw at home with Villa, good result because Emery was there. Beat Southampton 1-0. Then you get walloped at home by Newcastle. Absolutely walloped at home. Go to Fulham and win. Then you get a draw against Arsenal. Then you go and hammer Bournemouth. Then you lose to Liverpool. Then you lose again to Crystal Palace. Then you lose to City. Beat United. Lose again to Brentford. Beat Leeds. Lose again to Leicester. There's so many poor results there. Last season, in the Premier League, they won 11 times. 11 times from 38 games. This season, they've already won 10 games. Last season in the Premier League, they took 40 points from 38 games. This season, they've already taken 35 from 21. They have improved enormously. They're one of the few teams in the league that have improved last season to this. Liverpool have improved. City have not. Arsenal have regressed. Villa, overall it's an improvement, but based on the Emery time in charge, similar enough. Spurs have improved. West Ham have improved. Brighton have got worse. United have got worse. I think Chelsea are about the same. Newcastle have got worse. Wolves, a little bit better. Bournemouth have gotten better. Fulham are worse. Brentford are worse. Palace are worse. Forest are about the same. Everton are better. Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United are worse than the 3 teams that got relegated last year. So overall, I think the league has gotten worse. But I do think West Ham are outright better than they were last season. Last year, they lost 20 games in the Premier League. This season, they've only lost 6. They would need to lose 14 of the remaining 17 games to match that. Last season, they conceded 55 goals in 38 games. This season, 32 in 21. That's a slight improvement. Not a big improvement, but it is a slight improvement. Last season, they only scored 42 goals all season long. This year, they've got 35 already. It's not being talked about enough how much West Ham have improved last season to this. How much the sale of Declan Rice has helped them replenish their squad, strengthen their squad, and become a better team. And without the distraction of Declan Rice, because he had become a distraction. He was giving interviews at the World Cup talking about leaving. That's the club captain. And you look at this season in the cup competitions, they obviously went out of the FA Cup in the third round. Very disappointing. But they got to the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. Now, they did get walloped by Liverpool, but they got to the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. And they topped their group in the Europa League. Now, not the toughest group, but Freiburg are a good team. Olympiacos is always a tough place to go. Back at Topola, I mean, yet that's guaranteed 6 points. But still, 15 points from their 6 games. They beat Freiburg home and away. The only points they dropped were they lost away to Olympiacos, because like I said, Olympiacos is a tough place to go. But they're sitting pretty, waiting for a team to play them on the 7th of March. West Ham have improved across the board this year, and David Moyes is not getting enough credit for it. Now, I do think this kind of 6th place is the ceiling with Moyes. And I don't think they're going to win the Europa League. And I do think maybe it's in their best interest to move on from Moyes. But at the same time, if they gave him a new contract, I don't think you could argue with it at all. I think they've done really well this season, and he is the primary reason for it. He's made some big decisions. Moving away from Fabianski to Areola, which had been a blatantly obvious move for 18 months. 18 months that Areola was there on loan and then permanent deal. He was so much better than Fabianski. And it took Moyes an awful long time, but he got there eventually. Moving away from Cresswell as the starting left back. Big decisions. But ones that have paid off really, really well. This is a good West Ham team. Are they the finished article? No, not even slightly. There's areas to improve. One area looks like it's about to be improved. We'll talk about that later. But they're going in the right direction. Now, the test will be keeping Paqueta and keeping Kudus. Because every club will be eyeing them up for a summer move. Every club is looking at those two. Every top club is looking at those two. And it's believed that Kudus has a buyout clause. The other team I don't think is getting talked about enough is Wolves. Now, Gary O'Neill is getting talked about plenty. The great job that Gary O'Neill is doing. And he is doing a good job. There's absolutely no doubt that Gary O'Neill is doing a good job. And they are probably slightly better. I mean, they're 11th in the league. Last season, they finished 13th. Last season, though, they had that weird start with Bruno Lage. Then that Steve Davis caretaker spell for 6 weeks, which was a disgrace. And then Lopetegui took over. So Lopetegui was only really there after the World Cup. And he did turn things around for them. When he took over, they were in the bottom 3. And he ended up in 13th. So I do think fair is fair. I think Lopetegui was doing as good a job as Gary O'Neill. But what you have to give O'Neill credit for is he had very little money to work with in the summer. Because they'd committed to the Cunha deal, they'd committed to the Boubacar Traore deal. Both absolutely the right move. So in the summer, they didn't have a whole lot to spend. They got Santiago Bueno in, good centre-back, one for the future. I think he's 23, but centre-backs do tend to... He's actually 25, he's older than I thought. So maybe not as good a deal as I thought it was going to be. But I do like the Enzo Gonzalez deal, the young Paraguayan kid. And they get Bellegarde. They work the loan market, bring in Tommy Doyle, loan with an option to buy, bargain fee, I think 5 million. Great deal. But you look at what they sold. Ruben Neves out the door. Connor Cody out the door. Adama Traore out the door. João Moutinho out the door. Nathan Collins sold. Raul Jimenez sold. And then Matheus Nunes sold. So you're talking about 140 million in sales, plus a couple of big earners in Moutinho and Traore leaving on freeze. And Neves, Jimenez and Nunes undeniably would have been, along with Moutinho, their 4 top earners last season. So the wage bill was slashed, and they brought in a bunch of money, and they didn't spend a whole lot. Cunha at 44 million, by far the biggest signing they made. Traore was 10 million. Bueno was like 8. Gonzalez was like 7. I think Bellegarde was 14 or 15. So not big money spent overall. They probably made a profit on the year of about 70 million because they had to. Because they'd overspent for a couple of years and they were up against the wall financially. And Lopetegui decided that was not something he wanted to manage. So Gary O'Neill, what I give him most credit for is how late in the window he took over. How late in the summer. Like, Lopetegui, I think, did a huge disservice to both himself and to Wolves by stringing it out all summer long. Gary O'Neill was appointed on the 9th of August. Right? The league began on the 14th. He gave them 5 days to get ready. You look at their season so far, they were very, very unfortunate to lose away to United, dominated the game, were denied a clear penalty. They got hammered by Brighton, that's fair enough. They go away to Everton and win. Then they lose to Crystal Palace, that's disappointing. Then they batter Liverpool for the first half, end up losing 3-1, but it's a really good showing. Go to Luton and get a draw. In the circumstances, considering they played 60 minutes, including stoppage time, with 10 men, fine. Then they beat City at home. Then they draw with Villa at home. And now you're starting to pay attention to them because City are City and Villa had been so impressive. And Wolves had dominated both of them. Now, possession-wise, City would have had more of the ball. But every time Wolves got the ball, they cut them open. Every time they got the ball, Neto and Cunha were tearing them apart. They go to Bournemouth and win. They draw with Newcastle. Poor result away to Sheffield United, losing 2-1. That's a bad result. Then they beat Spurs 2-1. Then they lose away to Fulham. They lose away to Arsenal. Can't really complain about either. They beat Burnley at home. Bad result at home to Forest with a 1-1 draw. They go and lose to West Ham, fair enough. They beat Chelsea at home. They go and hammer Brentford. Then they hammer Everton at home. And now they've gone and gotten a good point against Brighton. Like, overall, you're not looking at many bad results. Sheffield United away, that's a bad result. But they've made their home ground a really tough place to go. Only Brighton and Liverpool have beaten them there. That was their first 2 home games of the season. Other than that, they're unbeaten at home. Now, look, Villa went there and got a draw. Newcastle went there and got a draw. Forest went there and got a draw. The Forest result is a bad one. The Forest result and the Sheffield United result are the only ones I would say for Wolves, with who they are and where they are, they're the only ones I'd say are bad results this year. They're still going in the FA Cup. They got past Brentford. They have this Black Country derby against West Brom coming up. You'd fancy them to get through if they've got everybody fit and ready. They went out of the EFL Cup to Ipswich. I think they were really disappointed by that one because Ipswich, obviously, championship team. They would have hoped to get through. But overall, I think you have to be impressed with what Wolves have done, especially when you factor in some of the injuries that they've had. Rayan Aït-Nouri has played 16 of the 21 games, but he's only in 14 starts. He is one of the better left backs in the league. Pedro Neto has only started 10 games. And he's one of the best forward players in the league. So losing those two, who are, I would say, along with Cunha, the 3 best players, You could add one of the midfielders in if you want, but I would say those three. I think to be where they are is really impressive. Like, Sa missed 2 games. Dawson missed a couple of games. Totti missed 6 starts. He's only recently made himself not recently, but he didn't start the season in the team, but he's made himself someone that they are going to play week on week. Lamine has missed 3 games. João Gomes has missed 3 games. Bellegarde has only started 6 and 6 sub-appearances, so he's missed 9 games this year. Now, some of them he might have been on the bench for, but still, it's a player they paid a lot of money for. Boubacar Traoré, who I think is going to be a top midfielder, he's only started 3 games this year, 12 appearances, but only 3 starts. They're being very cautious of him because he has had the bad thigh injury. But still, Hwang has missed 4 starts. Now, come off the bench in 3 of them, but, the point still stands. He hasn't been available to start every game. They lost Mateus Nunes 2 games into the season. They've chosen to loan out Fabio Silva and Sasa Kalasic, which I think means they might look to bring in a forward player. But Gary O'Neill is rinsing every single bit he can out of this team, and they're doing really well. They are. And again, it just doesn't get talked about enough. I don't think people have realised how good Wolves are at home. What a horrible, horrible team they are to go and play there, because they're really tough defensively. They're well organised. They've got a lot of good communication. Kilman has been really good this season. Dawson brings that veteran voice. Sa is a veteran in goal as well. He's a good organiser. They're tough as nails in midfield with Lamina, João Gomes, Boubacar Traoré, Tommy Doyle. That's a really good midfield group. And then up front, Neto, Hwang and Cunha are very, very hard to stop. And their skill sets work really well together. All of them can play all across the front 3. So it's non-stop movement, non-stop pace. All of them are comfortable carrying the ball. They're all good passers. Neto was, I think, the top assister in the league prior to his injury. And when they get you at Molineux and the crowd gets behind them, I think they're a really formidable outfit. Now, they're not great away from home. That's fair enough. But they're sensational at home. Neto has 7 assists in the league. He's only started 10 games. He's come off the bench in 1. I don't care who you are. That's really impressive. Cunha is one of the best all-round forward players in the league. Wouldn't be surprised to see a big club come in for him in the summer. Don't think Wolves will be open to a sale at this point. Probably next summer. They might lose Neto this summer as well, so they'll probably want to keep Cunha. But they're a formidable outfit. They're not a pushover. Whereas at times last season, especially the first half of the year, especially when they had that weird caretaker spell, 6 weeks is ridiculous. They waited 6 weeks for Lopetegui and almost torpedoed their own season. He knew what he was walking into. He had to have. There's no way he walked in and being told, oh yeah, we've loads of money to spend, and then they backed out. No way that happened. No way. So he knew what he was walking into, and then he walks away after 6 months because it's a little too hard. Really, really poor form. Massive credit to Gary O'Neill. We'll take another break. When we come back, news and gossip. See you in a sec. Right, welcome back. So, we've actually got 4 days worth of gossip to get through, so we'll just do that. We'll start with Saturdays, we'll run through Sunday, Monday, and today. Newcastle have identified Amadou Onana as a good option to bolster their ranks as concerns grow over the future of Joelinton. Amadou Onana will be a massive upgrade on Joelinton. If they could sell Joelinton for good money and bring in Onana, that would be a perfect fit. Onana with Guimaraes would be sensational, I think. Genuinely think that could be a sensational midfield duo. If they could nail them the 3rd spot, maybe they shift off Tonali in the summer. Maybe this is what they do, because, everybody expects them to sell Guimaraes. He has the buyout. 100 million's a lot for clubs to go to. Maybe they sell Joelinton, get 30, 35, Maybe they sell Tonali. They get 40 back out of him, perhaps. Maybe that's the play. Go and buy Onana and then potentially add Kefren Turam. If you put Guimaraes in a midfield with Kefren Turam and Onana, 2 6'4", rangy box-to-box midfielders, one of them a really good destroyer, one of them an exceptional ball carrier, that's a hell of a midfield. You'd have a tough time finding a Premier League team that would look forward to playing them. Arsenal have rebuffed approaches for Emile Smith-Rowe, with Aston Villa, West Ham and Newcastle all expressing interest. He started only 2 games in all competitions this season. Mikel Arteta is ruining that kid's career. West Ham are looking to make 2 loan signings after opening talks at Manchester City over a deal for Calvin Phillips. Now, we have news today that they have struck an agreement with Man City on Calvin Phillips. Loan, option to buy, but not an obligation. I think that's a great get for West Ham. I think if you put him and Alvarez together and let Phillips go back to playing the box-to-box role he used to play before Marcelo Bielsa got his hands on him, you might actually get the very best version of Calvin Phillips. I want to see that lad play football again. He's a good player, a very good player. I want to see him playing. Tottenham will shelve a move for Conor Gallagher until summer. Okay. Tim Steedten is also leading West Ham's bid to sign Ajax forward Steven Bergwijn this month, despite David Moyes being unconvinced. I'd be unconvinced as well, if I'm honest. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich and Manchester City are all keeping tabs on Florian Wirtz. That's not reporting, that's just stating the obvious. Jose Mourinho could quickly return to management after entering into talks with Saudi Pro League club Al Shabab. That would be a horrible move for Jose. Newcastle and Liverpool are keeping tabs on Atalanta's 24-year-old Brazilian midfielder Ederson. He's a good player. Do quite like him. Manchester United plan to hold talks with Djurgårdens over a deal for Lucas Bergvall, who's 17 and one of the most highly rated prospects in Europe. He's already been capped by Sweden. Bayern Munich will attempt to prize Kieran Trippier away from Newcastle, but should Trippier leave, Newcastle will not be forced into a panic for a last-minute replacement thanks to a plan already in place. Well, that would be Tino Livramento. You also have Emil Kraft there as depth, so you're fine. Arsenal and Manchester United are following the development of Joshua Zirkzee. Okay, we've had that one before. AC Milan are considering a move for Benjamin Sesko. Hasn't lit the world on fire at Leipzig, but he's a very, very talented player and very unique player as well with his build and his size. Arsenal left-back Nuno Tavares is interesting Marseille after growing unhappy at the lack of game time on loan at Nottingham Forest. He was on loan at Marseille last year. It wasn't particularly good for them. They showed no interest in bringing him back. They brought in Renan Lodi, who was on loan at Forest. He's now gone to Saudi Arabia, so now they need a left-back again, so it would be funny if they went back for Tavares. Arsenal look set to miss out on Jarell Hato, with Ajax confident of convincing him to sign a new deal. Not sure Arsenal were ever the frontrunners to get him, to be totally honest. Sheffield United's loan bid for Mason Holgate appears to have fallen through, with Everton asking for a higher loan fee for their England defender who's on loan currently at Southampton. I'd imagine Southampton would have something to say about this whole thing, unless they've got a recall clause in his contract. Moving on to Sunday then. Newcastle have rejected an approach for Kieran Trippier, but Trippier is keen to join Bayern this month. Of course he is. It's Bayern Munich. Newcastle have also rejected a loan inquiry from Callum Wilson from Atletico Madrid, but could sell the 31-year-old if a permanent offer is made. Okay, Manchester City are ready to reward Kevin De Bruyne with a new contract, with the 33-year-old attracting interest from the Saudi Pro League. Yeah, makes sense. Casemiro's Manchester United future is in doubt, as the club believe it is best to sell the 31-year-old. If you can get good money from Saudi, you take it and run. Erik ten Hag is keen to bring Brian Brobby to Old Trafford. I mean, he's a talented player. He's very unique physically because he's built like a bulldozer. He's quick and he's powerful. And he's done well at Ajax. Not like he hasn't lit the world alight. He was poor at Leipzig and couldn't make the grade there. He left Ajax too early. Went to Leipzig, couldn't make the grade, came back, did okay. Under Ten Hag in that loan. Was decent last year, but not great. And he's got 11 goals in 17 games in the league this year, but he hasn't been... He doesn't light the world on fire. Now, he is still very young. He's only 21. But, I mean, I'd imagine Ajax will want big money, and United just spent big money on a striker in Højlund. And I don't know that Højlund and Brobby together is the answer. Matthias de Ligt is open to leaving Bayern Munich this summer, with Manchester United reigniting their interest in the 24-year-old. I think that one makes sense to an extent. West Ham are ready to break their transfer record to sign Victor Boniface. Not happening. Aymeric Laporte, who left Man City to join Al Nassr, and says that there are many players who are dissatisfied with the playing conditions in the Saudi Pro League. So that's interesting. Benjamin Sesko has a 43 million release clause in his contract, which becomes valid this summer. Everton are determined to hold on to Abdoulaye Doucouré, who's been linked with Al Ettifaq, as the Saudi Pro League club looked to replace Jordan Henderson after he flopped and ran off to play for Ajax. Newcastle and Borussia Dortmund will try to sign Desiree Doué before the January transfer window club. He's super talented. He really, really is super talented. Mikel Arteta poured cold water on fans' hopes of a busy end to the transfer window, with the Gunners reluctant to pay the asking price for Ivan Toney. It's not that they're reluctant. They can't afford to. They cannot afford to pay the money for Ivan Toney. They can't afford to do anything, really, because they've spent huge amounts of money since Arteta took over, a lot of it badly, and now they're up against the wall for FFP. Sheffield United want 20 million for Anel Ahmedhodzic, with both Napoli and Atalanta interested in the 24-year-old Bosnian. Aston Villa have submitted a significant new offer for Morgan Rogers, and Manchester City are well placed if they move for Savio, as he is on loan to Girona from Troyes, both of whom are owned by Manchester City. Nothing dodgy there. Brentford's England striker Ivan Toney has been linked with Arsenal and Chelsea, but he will not push for a move until the summer. Newcastle will not sell Kieran Trippier or Callum Wilson this month. Trippier and Wilson will not agitate for a move, but Bayern will test Newcastle's resolve by making an improved offer. Newcastle want 12.9 million, which I think is what they paid to get Trippier, but the German club only want a loan. That's according to Bild. Newcastle will be forced to sell Bruno Guimaraes and Alexander Isak to meet financial fair play. No, they won't. West Ham are focused on securing Calvin Phillips, which they've done, and they've had an offer for Emile Smith-Rowe rebuffed. Jose Mourinho's preference is to stay in Italy, and he is set to hold talks with Napoli president Aurelio De Laurentiis about taking charge. Oh, that would not go down well with Roma fans, but Napoli fans would adore him. Crystal Palace have started drawing up a list of potential candidates to replace Roy Hodgson, with former Mainz boss Bo Svensson, former Forest boss Steve Cooper, Julian Lopetegui, and Kieran McKenna of Ipswich among the candidates. I would add Graham Potter to that list. I think they'll try. I don't think they'll get him, but I think they'll try. Of that list, I mean, McKenna is the one, but he won't move until the summer, and only if Ipswich don't come up. If you can get him, you've done really well. Tottenham have turned down a 20 million offer from Al Nassr from Emerson Royal. Makes sense to keep until the end of the season, I suppose. Juventus are still interested in Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Everton defender Ben Godfrey could be an option for AC Milan, but both Leeds and Sheffield United are interested in him. He's a good player. He's a good player. I could see him doing well for the Sheffield United or Leeds. I don't think he's AC Milan caliber, but such is life. Aston Villa have rejected West Ham's offer for John Duran, which was a loan with an option to buy. Okay. Villa may allow Duran to leave if they sign Morgan Rogers. I'm not sure why that would make any impact on Duran. Liverpool want 20 million for Caoimhín Kelleher. I think they'd take quite a bit less. Liverpool face competition from Atletico Madrid for Genk and Morocco winger Bilal El Kounas. Greek side PAOK are in talks with Wolves to sign Johnny Otto. Makes sense. His career at Wolves is over. Eintracht Frankfurt have reached a verbal agreement with Paris Saint-Germain's Hugo Ekitike about a move and are set to step up talks. I still don't understand why he didn't go there in the... he wouldn't move. In the deal in the summer for Randall Kolomuani, he was meant to go to Eintracht and he said no. And now he doesn't kick a ball, so I'd imagine he'll want to go now. La Liga clubs, Cadiz and Getafe, have made offers for Sporting Gijón's French midfielder Jonathan Varane, the half-brother of Raphael Varane. Norwich and QPR also have interest. Okay. Finally, today's West Ham are close to an agreement with Calvin Phillips, yada yada. Manchester United have offered Jadon Sancho and Anthony to clubs in the Saudi Pro League and want about 50 million for each player. Yeah, no, not happening. Brian Brobby would jump at the chance to join Manchester United. Of course he would. Imagine the money he'll get paid to not be very good at football. Manchester United have turned down Inter Milan's offer to swap Aaron Wan-Bissaka for Denzel Dumfries. That never happened. Chelsea have no intention of selling Levi Colwill. No one thought they did. The Blues do not have Victor Gyökeres high on their target list and will not pay his asking price. It's actually a buyout, not an asking price. Newcastle could be persuaded to part with Miguel Almiron, with Al-Shabaab showing interest in the playmaker. The Magpies view Morgan Gibbs-White as the ideal replacement for Almiron. Couldn't be a more different player if he tried to be. Absolute nonsense. Chelsea and Manchester United have been told Nice will not entertain offers for their French defender Jean-Claire Todibo. It's 90minute.com, so it's definitely spoofing. I think they'd take a good offer if it came in. West Ham's hopes of signing Armando Broja look remote, with Chelsea still seeking at least 50 million for a player worth 20. Fantastic stuff. Todd Bowley needs to realise, just because you overpay for everybody doesn't mean everybody else will as well. Lyon are attempting to bring Karim Benzema to the club. I don't think they could do his wages. Newcastle cannot afford a deal to sign Ederson. He's also not what they need this month, so, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Al-Attifaq, Facundo Palestri has seen a loan move to Granada stall over the salary contribution the Spanish club would make, so PSV are eyeing the situation now. Nottingham Forest have rejected a loan approach from Feyenoord for Nico Williams. That seems like spoofing. Burnley are trying to strike a deal to sign Montpellier's French defender Maxime Esteve. Now, he is a good centre-back, but he's another young defender. But maybe their plan is to go down, keep this group together, grow together, and come back up. If they could do that, they could be in great shape. AC Milan have made contact with Tosin Adarabioyo, who's out of contract at the end of the season. I think he'd be a good signing for Milan. Frankly, another good centre-back to add to their ranks. Burnley and Republic of Ireland forward Michael Obafemi is expected to join Millwall on loan for the rest of the season. Obafemi is one of those players who's kind of not quite good enough for the Championship, very good, not quite good enough for the Premier League, but really good in the Championship. So I could see him doing well at Millwall. I really could. Right, folks, that's me out for today. Hopefully here tomorrow, but we do have another storm on the way, so just bear with me. Wasn't meant to be here yesterday. Then things got changed, and I was going to be, and then we had no electricity, so I couldn't do anything. But hopefully the electricity now stays on, and we're good to go for the rest of this week. So fingers crossed. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves.
Social Podcast Network.
Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcasts? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free news podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
At Discount Tire, we know your time is valuable. Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online. Did you know Discount Tire now sells wiper blades? Check out our current deals at discounttire.com or stop in and talk to an associate today. Discount Tire.
Let's get you taken care of.